And with that, Super Bowl 60 is in the books, and also, too, the 2025-26 season is now officially over. The Seattle Seahawks are your Super Bowl champions, 29-13. Kenneth Walker was your MVP, the first running back to win the Super Bowl MVP since Terrell Davis back in 1997. So, been quite some time here. Overall, a very boring game, to say the least. And I did make a video on my podcast video, episode 12, talking a little bit more about the Super Bowl again. And I thought it was going to be maybe not as memorable because I keep hammering home with it's not the marquee type of quarterbacks we're used to. The top people, Mahomes, or seeing Allen the first time Super Bowl, Lamar first time in the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow, the top elite quarterbacks we always talk about that we've always seen the last few years. We're not in this one. Matthew Stafford as well. Jalen Hurts, not elite, but we have seen him a couple times in the Super Bowl. Nothing like that. We've had two brand new quarterbacks that people aren't too crazy about. You had Drake May, who did have a MVP caliber season and was a couple votes short of winning one, and Sam Darnold with his redemption story. I said with that too, it might be a little bit for this game being not memorable, but also I think it'd be a good game, a little bit of an underrated one in a way, and that was the complete opposite. Shout out to the haters that were bashing this game because of how boring it was going to be because of the quarterback matchup. You were absolutely right. It was boring, especially in the first half here, to the point that I thought the kicker was going to win MVP for Seattle, for Myers. I thought he was going to win it. He broke, side note too, he broke the Super Bowl record for most field goals in a single Super Bowl game at 5. Also added 2 extra points there. It felt like at that point that no one was going to score a touchdown, and by default, we were going to have to give it to Myers because he was the only one really putting up points in the game. And at halftime, 9-0, very conservative by the Seahawks offensively, in part 2 with Sam Darnold missing some easy throws, I should say, to players, especially when they got closer to the Patriots territory in the red zone, opting for field goals. And it seemed like that the process was very conservative. The defense was doing its job. New England could do absolutely nothing until really garbage time in the fourth quarter. Dismantled Drake May in that offensive line, especially Will Campbell. Will Campbell got absolutely destroyed the whole game, penalties and so forth, and just couldn't hold his own in that one. And that was a concern a little bit going into the Super Bowl. This matchup was the left side of the offensive line for the Patriots, and that got extremely exposed. Again, mostly on Will Campbell, and this one could do absolutely nothing to help Drake May in this game here. But still, the offense felt a little conservative. It did. When you look at especially the box scores for offensively for the Seahawks, if I told Patriots fans before going this game that Jackson Smith and Jigbo would have 4 catches for 27 yards, you would think that there's a good chance he won the Super Bowl because who else is going to step up in his absence? You have Cooper Kupp, who really hasn't done too much this year. Rashid Shaheed, who you do have to respect the speed, hasn't really done too much this year. Did have the one great catch he had against the Rams, but it's pretty much about it. Nothing too much on that. More of a hit or miss type of guy. So you look at that and go, who else is really a threat outside Jack Smith and Jigba? And you feel like that was a question mark going into this game too. If you take away Smith and Jigba or slow him down immensely, who else is going to step up for this Seahawks receiving group? And Kupp did that. He had some good catches, 6 of 61. A.J. Barner was your only person that scored a touchdown offensively for the Rams here with 4 for 54 and 1 touchdown. Rashid Shaheed 2 for 27. Jackson and Jigba, who we thought was going to be out because he went to the locker room with a concussion supposedly for a checkup, came back in, but didn't really do too much there. Even though he was targeted 10 times, only had 4 for 27. So give credit for the Patriots defense there. Kenneth Walker 2 of 26, and you have Haloni, if I said his name right, 1 of 7. It really came down to the running game, and Kenneth Walker played great in this one, 27 carries for 135 yards, which of course be inevitably your Super Bowl MVP like we talked about in the beginning of the video here. And again, a lot of great runs, got stifled a couple times, had a couple drops as well, but overall was really the offense. Sam Darnold was very hit or miss in this one. It was, and again, especially in the first half, very conservative. And I thought as bad as the Patriots offense was playing, there's still an opportunity with Vrabel. And being in this situation, being in this environment, of course, being as a player with the Patriots, winning multiple Super Bowls, knowing what it takes, how the atmosphere is, that maybe he can kind of coach his team in the second half to turn around and say, listen, like, we're still in this. As bad as we play offensively, it's only 9-0. And if you get a touchdown, you're right back in it. And that didn't really happen with that. But I was worried that the Seahawks, especially Sam Darnold, being a little bit shaky in this game, this was going to cost them. It was. Even as great as the Seahawks defense was playing at some point in time, how it happened for the Patriots defense that at some point there's going to be a crack and the Patriots are going to get a touchdown. Now, again, all that really came in garbage time, and when the game was all said and done, maybe you can give them slack for the first touchdown and say it doesn't really count as garbage time, because that kind of got them somewhat back in it. After that, the other touchdown was nothing. But give credit to the Seahawks offense. They did a little bit more in this one. And again, unfortunately, this was if you're an offensive fanatic and you thought Jackson Smith-Njigba was going to play well, you thought Drake May in this offense was going to do something, you had to really wait for the touchdowns for the fourth quarter in this one. So definitely it was a boring game. Probably one of the worst Super Bowls in recent memory, at least going back to 2018 with the Patriots and Rams when I was 13-3 when you had one touchdown in that one. It felt like that was going to be just as bad, if not worse. But all the action really came in the fourth quarter, more so for the Seahawks with the touchdown by Sam Darnold. The Seahawks get the defensive interception, fumble interception, how I want to phrase it as, and get the touchdown there on top of that. And again, it was just this pass rush was just relentless. And again, and Patriots had a nice throw by Drake May to Matt Collins in the end zone. After that, a lot of the stats here, you see 27-43, 295, 2 touchdowns. Most of that is garbage time because Drake May could do absolutely nothing, in part because of his shaky throws and bad pinpoint accuracy he had, but also too, offensive line just couldn't protect anything. The running game was non-existent. I personally kind of criticized the Patriots for not using Henderson more because at times the few carries he got was a little explosive. Not saying it was anything major, but you did see there was some sparks there, something to build off of, and they kind of quickly went away with that. Now you saw, of course, at some point they had to get away from it because of how the score was going, but I did think, and so they were getting stifled a little bit, 3.3 yards a carry, 3.2 yards a carry for both these guys, for Stevenson and Henderson. So it's not like they were, certainly, amazing in this game, but I felt like they kind of should have leaned into it a little bit more in that side. Again, it's been more of Henderson in that aspect, so I feel like went away from the running game pretty quickly in this one and kind of set themselves up into, teeing off on a more of a one-dimensional offense, which it was easier for the pass rush to get after Drake May in this one. But give credit to McDonald. Let me apologize if I'm kind of over the place talking about this recap, but give credit to McDonald there. What he did was masterclass. Again, you can question the quarterback, you question the team, where the Patriots frauds getting here because of the path they took, especially in the conference championship game when Jarrett Stidham was the quarterback and Bo Nix breaks his ankle against the Bills in the divisional round. You could say that, but I still thought the Patriots were a respectable team, and I didn't buy into the fact that it was going to be a blowout as bad as it was. I thought with Vrabel and what he's done with this team here, they've been in these situations against tough defenses, and they'll find a way to get there. But also, at the same point, too, I did say this offense wasn't challenged. And again, it's not the point of they haven't faced tough defenses. They haven't faced offenses that push them, really. And to a similar point, it wasn't really the case until late in this one, really, where the Seahawks were moving the ball, more, certainly a lot more efficient than the Patriots. But for 3 quarters, they weren't scoring touchdowns. They weren't putting the dagger in the game where they're really just blowing it open. And it just got to a point where the Patriots were all said and done. They were just kicking field goals, and they were still in it, even at the third quarter, 12-0. If the Patriots get a touchdown, they're back in there. Hypothetically, kind of talking about this, but that shows you even with the Seahawks moving the ball more efficiently than the Patriots and getting the downfield, they still weren't capitalizing on those touchdowns. The defense, and I think to give a shout out to Christian Gonzalez, he played phenomenal in this game here. Definitely made some key 2 pass breakups that saved the Patriots from costing them from costing the offense, or costing touchdowns and putting the offense in a tougher position. Gonzalez played phenomenal in this game. That's, if there's an MVP I can give to the Patriots here, just a note that balled out was Gonzalez. That he played phenomenal in this game. He made some key plays in this one, but can only do so much when the offense is not doing anything. But again, going to this game, I thought there was going to be question marks of can the Seahawks push the Patriots offense to match the scores. And again, the Sam Darnold didn't really do too much. They did enough to win, of course, didn't turn the ball over, which is key. But even still with that, just the defense was absolutely relentless. And you saw at times they were getting stuff going, but got pushed back. Whether it was a penalty or it had negative play or incomplete pass by Drake May. It was this team, especially when it got to the fourth quarter, really broke open. And they just kind of hammered home against Drake May getting 6 sacks, technically 7, but they don't count that. I guess they didn't count that hit that led to the fumble per se. Got it look more, I think, like more of an interception, but fumble that the Seahawks brought back for a touchdown. Counts only 6 sacks, but even still, 6 sacks is insane for that, and it almost got almost shades of the Legion of Boom once again on how they performed against the Broncos in Super Bowl 48. But again, for McDonald and what he did there was absolutely masterclass. And the pressure he brought from the safeties, the corners, or just the front four was phenomenal. It was. They could not stop anything. For Josh McDaniels and this offense had no answer at all to this team. They had no response. Again, maybe a couple plays here and there downfield that maybe most of it came in garbage time in the fourth quarter. But really, when it in the thick of it, when it really mattered most, they could do absolutely nothing. They could not do anything. They had no answer protecting Drake May. They couldn't really move the ball downfield. Again, maybe a couple of catches here and there, but nothing consistent to really build off of going into and trying to build to a point where they get a touchdown and can be back in this. Nothing really of that nature here. Stephon Diggs, for the most part, was helped. I think one catch for 8 yards or 5, or there's one catch for 5 yards. Again, most of his garbage time there, spinning the ball late in the game for when he catches a big pass, which I think led up to their second touchdown in that one. But they held themselves. They held the Patriots offense immense, great in this one. Matt Collins is the only one that really could do anything. Had a great touchdown catch for their first touchdown, 478 for one touchdown. Everyone else to nothing too much. I mean, you look at Kayshon Boutte, who I thought was going to be a bigger factor into this one. And when I was bringing down two receivers, if you take away JSN, who's going to stop up? And I think the Patriots have more outlets to go to if that was a similar suit there. If I take away Boutte or Diggs or Hollins, you have more outlets that you trust as opposed to the Seahawks. Even though you do have the marquee names with Cooper Kupp and Shaheed, who has explosiveness, a little bit of question marks there. But Boutte did absolutely nothing. One catch for 21 yards there. Hunter Henry took a nasty hit later in the game. 3 catches for 31 yards. Diggs 3 for 37, which was basically meaningless for the game here. Stevenson 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. The other person scored a touchdown there, and Demario Douglas 5 of 45. It's again for McDonald there in his second year with the Seahawks and what he did with that defensive side, absolutely phenomenal. For a team that didn't have a double-digit sack leader, that he finds ways to generate the pass rush and to get home on there. And every single snap was just hell for Drake May. It was. He could not get anything going. He was rattled. He almost looked. They made him look like a rookie quarterback and how he played at times. Made some good plays here and there with his legs and good throws, especially the first one to Matt Collins, but really was shut down. And I was shocked, really. I thought that the Patriots would have a little bit more of a fight here, even though Seahawks have a great defense, obviously, on the full display there. But I thought with them going against the Texans, them going against the Broncos, that they were a little bit battle-tested, and I thought they could kind of find a way to do something. But the difference in this game compared to those other two games is Sam Darnold didn't turn the football over. They didn't have a C.J. Stroud having 4 interceptions. They didn't have Jarrett Stidham, who was incompetent and had an interception. You had Sam Darnold, who wasn't great in this game, but has played in some big games, especially the game prior in the conference championship. Made great throws, played phenomenal in that one, and took care of the football. A little shaky at times with some of his throws. There was a couple times where it almost got picked off. It looked like the Patriots kind of could capitalize, failed to do so. So I wouldn't say Sam Darnold played a clean game, but that was a big difference. You weren't facing C.J. Stroud. You weren't facing Jarrett Stidham. You were facing a competent quarterback in Sam Darnold, and that was the case there. The Patriots couldn't capitalize on defensively, even though they did the best they could. I can't knock the Patriots defense for this one. They did the best they could. The offense just could do absolutely nothing, and then they just against Seahawks kind of broke it in the fourth quarter to pull away 29-13. If you really want to think about 29-7 was a score there, but again, Patriots score a touchdown in garbage time there too. For the Seahawks to capture their second Super Bowl in franchise history. And if he wants to get revenge from Super Bowl 49 with that, of course, infamous Malcolm Butler interception on the goal line. We should have ran the ball on the 1-yard line. We'll always say that, but kind of, in a way, almost unwrote the wrong there in that instance and kind of make up for the revenge game, even though it's not Tom Brady and it's a totally different cast there, but still had a way to find a way to win this one and capture their second Super Bowl. But again, it was comparing to other Super Bowls, not that impressive. Very boring for the first 3 quarters. It got better in the fourth quarter with the pass rush and they scoring touchdowns at least. That was the only time it really happened. But overall, it's going to be unfortunate for Seahawks fans, of course, memorable in their eyes, obviously being the fans. But outside perspective, it's going to be one of the more forgotten Super Bowls. I feel like it's just maybe we'll remember it because of how the great defensive performance it was for Seattle. But again, nothing too memorable, really. Again, for the most part, field goals. Offense was very bland for 3 quarters. That was pretty much about it. Again, the names don't jump out you with Sam Darnold and Drake May. At this point, at least Drake May being early in his career thus far, certainly maybe years down the line when Drake May progresses and has a great career that I think he will have and a lot of people believe he will have, maybe look back and it'll be a little bit more memorable. But as of right now, a little bit of a forgotten Super Bowl. It's gotten the worst one since Super Bowl, sorry, the 2018 Super Bowl, except for the Patriots and Rams in this one. So with that being said, after covering the recap of the Super Bowl 60, what are my thoughts also, addition-wise, taken away from it? For Sam Darnold, what people have said leading up to this game, he is the modern-day Jim Plunkett, if you want to call it that, a guy that bounced around from a couple from teams and finally finds a landing spot with the Seahawks. Darnold becomes the first quarterback to be with 5+ teams and win a Super Bowl. And it just shows you the great redemption story of that. And, as a Bills fan, it sucks seeing Sam Darnold win a Super Bowl before Josh Allen, at least getting to 1, or technically 2 if you want to count his 49ers stint being a backup. But I'm happy for Sam Darnold. I am. This is a guy who you thought his career was over from the Jets. Him seeing ghosts from his quote he had against the Patriots in a primetime game there. And for him to kind of battle his way back, going to Carolina, played a little bit better, but still bad. Then taking the time to sit behind Brock Purdy, learning how things are actually done, being with a great coach in Kyle Shanahan, then going to the Vikings, kind of being thrusted at that point there with McCarthy being hurt under Kevin O'Connell and having a phenomenal season there too. Of course, there was question marks at the end of the season for the Vikings before the postseason and then the wild card matchup where he played bad. Goes to the Seahawks and does enough to steer the ship for the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl. And again, that is kind of your modern day Jim Plunkett, or if you want to throw into since 2000, your Trent Dilfer, your Brad Johnson, those type of quarterbacks there too. If you want to throw in Nick Foles, even though Nick Foles balled out in the conference championship and the Super Bowl, if you want to get more unknown names per se for that ones that you're not expecting, but more so for a Trent Dilfer or a Brad Johnson or Plunkett like we talked about there. So that is what we've seen thus far. Again, once again, from that great, I'm happy for Sam Darnold. A rough arc early in his career, and the fact that he turns it around, wins the Super Bowl, phenomenal for him. Not sure what's going to happen next year because there's going to be a lot of question marks with Clint Kubiak no longer being the OC. Can they build off of that? We'll see really what's going to happen next year with who gets more of the credit. Is it Clint Kubiak for building the offense and the scheme and putting Sam Darnold in a great position to succeed? Or can Sam Darnold kind of hold his own and play at the worst case the same level he did this season, and kind of maybe slightly build off and play a little bit better? So we'll see how that power struggle per se, who gets the credit more going to next year, and as well who they announce. Is it promoting within, or do they go outside the team and bring it there? I feel maybe it's more promoting within and seeing they're trying to keep the same type of offensive scheme that Kubiak had for this team this year as well. Now seeing that Kubiak is now officially the head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, we'll see what he does with presumably first overall pick Fernando Mendoza. And I also want to bring up this too about, I tweeted this out after the game about, have the Seahawks, not just the Seahawks, but also the Eagles last year. This might be throwing shade at Jalen Hurts there, depending on how you view him as a caliber of a quarterback. Has these two teams, these last 2 years, giving you an alternate blueprint that you don't need an elite quarterback? We're so focused on you have to hit your franchise quarterback. You got to have this elite quarterback. You have to have top quarterback to win it. And it's not to say you shouldn't still go after that. That should always be the goal. And if you hit on it, phenomenal. There's no shame in that. That's like, you get rid of your quarterback because these two teams won it with above average quarterbacks or good quarterbacks, or how you want to view Hurts and Sam Darnold. That's not me saying the Bills should get rid of Josh Allen, that the Ravens should get Lamar Jackson because they haven't gone to the Super Bowl. We should get rid of them and have a downgrade at the quarterback position and build everything else up. That's not what I'm saying. You should still strive to get the elite quarterback, but the Seahawks and the Eagles have shown you, and maybe to a part two, how you feel about Brock Purdy as well. The 49ers, even though they haven't won the Super Bowl, have gone there as well too. And if you want to throw them maybe even farther back with Jimmy Garoppolo per se too, on top of that you don't need that elite quarterback to win. You need someone that is above average, can play well at times, but also you have to have the rest of the team built great. You have to have a great offense. You have to have a good enough offensive pieces, a good running game, and it doesn't have to be the marquee name. It doesn't have to be, again, a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford. It doesn't have to be one of those guys. As long as you get someone that can do it their job and maybe rise above the occasion, be a little bit better in the postseason, and just take care of the football, you can do that. And it's not, again, that's not also me saying that it's going to swing that way, like I talked about. It's not saying get rid of your top quarterback because you haven't got there or won. It doesn't mean that the NFL is going that direction. But I think they are showing you an alternate blueprint that it's not the end of the world if you don't have that guy. As long as you have the rest of the team is good to great in other aspects, and you have, of course, the head coach, obviously, to have the pairing. You don't need that elite quarterback. You can survive with a good enough quarterback, an above average quarterback, as long as he can do his job like Sam Darnold has, or like Jalen Hurts has, where they're not asked to do a lot because they have the great pieces around it. You have a Jack Smith-Njigba, the best receiver this year, statistically, in the league. You have Kenneth Walker, who is a good running back. You have Jalen Hurts, who has two great wide receivers in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and the Offensive Player of the Year in Saquon Barkley. It is enough. And also, too, again, the great defenses that both the Eagles and the Seahawks had in these two Super Bowls, and they basically mirrored each other defensively. These were two defenses that just dismantled the offenses because both offenses had issues with the offensive line. But the Chiefs had problems there getting into the Super Bowl, as well as the Patriots on the left side of the offensive line, and both defenses could get home. They could rush forward. They can get the blitz. They can wreak havoc on Mahomes and May and dismantle them last 2 years too. So just not just a blueprint with that, but also getting back into defense wins championships as always. It's always been a staple, but has really shown you that the last 2 years where it could even if you have the great quarterback as Patrick Mahomes, it's not, as long as you have that pass rush, you can disrupt him in the offensive line. You have no problem winning that game. And for Drake May too, I don't want to make it sound like I'm putting the same caliber as Mahomes, but again, had a type of MVP season, and you could argue he should have won the MVP in some people's eyes, and he got absolutely dismantled in this game too. On top of that, so we'll see moving forward how teams approach that. As I say, once again, next year there's going to be another average, above average quarterback that's going to win it. It could go back to the usual of the Chiefs. If depending on when Mahomes comes back, they could be back on the right track and go there, or it could be the Rams with Matthew Stafford. Again, we could have the marquee matchup again at quarterback next year, and we could kind of just look as a foregone conclusion. But I think these last 2 years, and again, you could go back to the last 3 or 4 years with teams even not winning the Super Bowl, but at least getting there, that you can get there. It's not just so much on the quarterback. You can get there with above average help, and you can have your, again, modern day Jim Plunkett, your Sam Darnold. You can have your Jalen Hurts, your Brock Purdy. And again, maybe I'm throwing a little bit shade and disrespect to Hurts and Brock Purdy, how you view them, but they're not elite really in the grand scheme of things. You could say that maybe because we're Hurts gone into Super Bowls, won one MVP of the Super Bowl too. But I'm just saying, like, it's just not the names you typically think of in terms of elite quarterbacks. You can get there with just above average guys as well, and no shade at them. Saying again, Sam Darnold, as maybe as bad as he played in this game, as shaky he was, he made the right plays at the biggest times. He made a great scramble at one point in the game. He had a great touchdown throw. Certainly better outduel Drake May just because of taking care of the football. So again, that's one takeaway I look at from the Super Bowl here, is that it's an alternate blueprint to winning it for this one. It's not always just, again, the marquee name at the quarterback position. You can do that, but you need to have everything else great. It's not just simple saying, oh, you can just pick anyone for a cheaper price and get it done. No, the rest of the team has to be great as well. So it's a vice versa, where you have the elite quarterback, maybe not the best offense around or best team around them, but you have the great team, not the best quarterback around them. So it's a little bit of a give and take there too. On top of that, so again, we'll see moving forward with Seattle for there. In terms of Super Bowl, odds are repeating. I just don't see that. I think that they will make the playoffs, of course. But I'm going to be very interested to see with Clint Kubiak being gone, how they're going to play offensively, especially how Sam Darnold's going to be. I think that there is going to be, of course, a step back. I don't think it's going to be horrible, but I think it will be noticeable. No doubt about that. Maybe comparing a little bit to the Eagles when they lost Kellen Moore to the head coaching job to the New Orleans Saints, where it was a lot of dysfunction, even though they had much better players all around offensively than the Seahawks did. With two great wide receivers, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, who's a solid tight end, just couldn't find their rhythm. Great offensive line too. So again, I think it might be a similar sense of that where they are a tad bit lost. Again, maybe with if they are going to keep the same scheme, it's not that much of a drop off, but a little bit more. Whoever's going to step up is not having the experience as Kubiak being the play caller, and you might hit some bumps in the road and not be as fluid as you were this season. Again, I think they won't make the playoffs. I don't think it's going to be a dramatic drop where they're going to fall apart. I'd be shocked, really, especially for Sam Darnold and how he's done last 2 years, but this year and how he did with the Vikings. I don't think there's going to be a severe drop off, but I think there will be a little bit of a step back there. Someone else will represent the NFC in Super Bowl 61 next year. And kind of switching over to the Patriots in this aspect, I mean, as brutal as it was, and probably for a lot of us, we were excited to see the Patriots lose in this fashion. You got to give hats off to Mike Vrabel. I raved about Mike Vrabel, especially in my podcast video that I made about the awards. He was deserving of it. What he did with this team was phenomenal, going from as dysfunctional and as bad as they were under Rob Mayo in 2024 to being the first year with the Patriots and taking all these Super Bowl well exceeded expectations. Again, it wasn't the outcome that themselves and of course Patriots fans were looking for when you get this far here. Definitely disappointing, embarrassing to say at least of the performance, but still severely overachieved in what they did there too. On top of that, being with, again, if you want to knock the play calling, especially from Josh McDaniels, still one assistant coach of the year too. Give credit to them too, as well as more importantly Drake May. I mean, what a huge jump it is to his second year when he showed you some flashes, but nothing too crazy, to all of a sudden playing in the Super Bowl, where he was the last time they were in Santa Clara, he was a fan in the stands as a Carolina Panthers fan watching it. And going from that to years later playing in it to what an achievement that was. And again, for what he did there, well overachieved, played great in his sophomore year. Again, should have, you can make the argument, should have won MVP in some people's eyes, was close to winning it. It was a close race between him and Stafford. You look at that, all-pro nod as well. And making the Super Bowl here. Now the question is going to be, if that curse is he going to get back there? Because we always seen a lot of times where quarterback who loses his first Super Bowl doesn't get back. Jalen Hurts recently kind of broke that streak there of losing against the Chiefs a few years ago and then winning it last year. We'll see what happens there too. But it's always just a superstition that kind of sits in the back of your head where, could it be, is the curse going to hit Drake May? It's tough to say. It's tough to get here regardless. And you look at the road that they got here, you could say that it was a lot of luck, where it started off with, it was an easy schedule because of how bad they were last year. The path was was easier because of how we feel about Justin Herbert and his playoff performance, as well as the battered offensive line. C.J. Stroud being a turnover machine in that game, as great as the Texans defense were, and some statistics when I was reading leading up to that game matched up to elite legendary defenses, Legion of Boom, the 2000 Ravens, the 2015 Broncos. They matched up pretty in some areas, in some categories. They were up there with those guys, but the offense was just so bad. And Drake and C.J. Stroud was horrible in not just for that game, but also in the Steelers game. It was easy for them. And you look at, again, the Broncos that didn't have Bo Nix, and I truly believe that if Bo Nix didn't break his ankle in that game and plays in the conference championship, the Broncos go to the Super Bowl and face the Seahawks, and we would have had a much better game than what we were shown there too. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it would be the same way too with the offense. You're not sure. Maybe outside of Cortland Sutton, not too many, certainly household names per se. Even though they do play well offensively and they kind of grind the game out a little bit. It could have been the same situation, but I do think Bo Nix would have found a way to win that game in that circumstance, as opposed to Jared Stidham, who hasn't played in years and was, even though the score was very low scoring at 10-7 and close in an aspect score-wise, it wasn't really, because the Patriots defense locked down. All the Patriots offense had to do was just take care of the football, don't turn the ball over, punt it off, defense will do its job, and that's what happened there. So you could certainly question the path to getting there with the regular season and the very questionable opponents they beat along the way to getting to the Super Bowl. We'll see how they do next year, but I'm still very high on the Patriots. Even going to before entering the 2025-26 season, I was, I liked them a lot. Not, again, being a Bills fan, did not like that, but objectively, I think they were going to surprise a lot of people, and boy, did they surprise people. Again, question the path there, but overachieved. I don't think anyone thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl, especially when the playoffs started. I don't think any of us thought that. We thought maybe it was going to be, so the Broncos were up there, the Bills, a lot of pressure on the Bills to get there with no Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar Jackson. To on top of that, maybe Jacksonville, some people were kind of picking as a dark horse team to get there, because the season they had there, pretty overall well built enough, it's only good enough to get to that mark. And again, didn't happen there. Teams fell apart. Teams choked. Unfortunate injuries with the Broncos. But still, the Broncos had a great season. I think, they're here to stay. I don't think they're going to go. This is just a one and done. Not to say next year they're going to make the Super Bowl, but this is going to be a team that's here to stay. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be constantly, competing in the playoffs and be a threat potentially. They have certainly a lot of cap space still. Drake May is on a rookie contract, so they have a lot of money to build off of what they did there. And again, they overachieved. They kind of accelerate the rebuild process per se under the Drake May era. So there's a lot of things they can do. They can add more to the wide receiving group. They can maybe look at running back group. They're fine with Trayvon Henderson. We'll see about Ramondre Stevenson, what happens with him. But I think there should certainly be some money put into the offensive line, maybe with the left guard position there too, and defense. I mean, there's some more pieces you can add on there, but I think it's more importantly just trying to add a little bit more pieces to Drake May in that offense to get a little bit more things going. Stephon Diggs was a good signing. We'll see what happens. I mean, he has some controversy, some off-the-field things he has to work on or deal with, so whether that plays a factor in his future, I have no idea. Knowing NFL and how things play out, I doubt it, but certainly could be a thing there too. But so again, it's certainly a good amount of money to build off of this team. Again, especially with Drake May, more importantly, being on a rookie contract, you can invest heavily in other positions here and compete once again with that, because we're not sure about Patrick Mahomes, about his health, and if he's going to be ready week 1 or might miss a few games to Baltimore. Some question marks there too with under new head coach, Bills new head coach as well. The Bengals. We'll see once again if they have another repeat of just having another disaster year, missing the playoffs. So certainly, as right now, overreacting, if you want to say, they have a good shot in the playoffs once again. But we'll see with a tougher schedule, what the pieces they bring in, can they replicate what they do? I'm not saying being 14-3 going to the Super Bowl, but can they be competitive and show, hey, we can still hang with the big dogs in the league. We can still go against the top tier teams and still beat them, and we can be competitive. We can be one of the guys that you have to respect their names, and that we can make another run once again. So, again, for both these teams here, Again, not projecting them to repeat at all and to go back there, but both these teams, I believe, will make the postseason once again. I think we take a little bit of a step back here. It's tough to replicate what you guys, for these two teams, what they did this year. So I think there will be a little bit of a step back here, maybe a little bit of some problems along the way, but I think overall these two teams are fine. We'll see them once again in the 2026-27 season, more so the 2027 postseason, I should say, and they'll be right in there. And we'll see how that plays out there too. Like I said, overall, for not just for the Super Bowl 60, but for the 2025 season, 25-26 season, I should say, not bad overall. It was certainly wide open, playoff-wise, more so for the AFC, of just how a lot of, how it built along the way with, again, Lamar Jackson being hurt at some point, and the Ravens being shaky, the Bengals, unfortunately, with Joe Burrow getting hurt a good portion of the year, Patrick Mahomes in the Chiefs playing bad down the stretch, and then unfortunately Mahomes tears his ACL too. So it definitely, unfortunately, a good amount of marquee name injuries, and also too defensively as well with Micah Parsons too tearing his ACL late in the season. It sucks to see all across the board. So again, overall not bad. If you want to say it was a great season because there was no true clear cut favorite as opposed to years past of no question, no doubt about it, slam dunk, they're going to the Super Bowl. It was maybe a little bit more wide open, and the season came down a little bit more down the stretch where everything wasn't solidified early, and there were still things up the grabs for Week 18 for the season. So again, overall, not too bad. Depending on how your perspective looks at it, looking back on it, hindsight 2020. But again, overall, a solid season, no doubt. A little bit of a disappointing, underwhelming Super Bowl 60. So hopefully we could pray that Super Bowl 61 will be a much better matchup there, as well as the 2026-27 season there. So again, that's going to wrap up the video here. Of course, we're making tons of videos through the offseason reports and breaking news about trades, signings, releases, and so forth. So we'll have plenty of things ramping up for the offseason here leading up to next year. So again, 2025-26 season and Super Bowl 60 is in the books here. The Seattle Seahawks, once again, are your Super Bowl champions, 29-13.